Hi everybody, welcome to Haven on Earth. My name is Lisa and my husband's name is Jason. We currently live in Salazar, Oklahoma, and we moved here 5 months ago from Abilene, Texas. In Texas, we had been homesteading for 4 years, but when we moved to Oklahoma, we started our homestead from scratch. We bought land that had utilities on it, water, electric, sewer, but none of them were hooked up or ready to go. So we've been working on getting everything set up and then as well as building our shed to house. And a little backstory, we moved here September 12th and our house in Abilene was supposed to close September 13th. Everything got really delayed and we didn't end up closing until December 1st. So right after the house closed, we went to a local shed dealer and we picked out our shed to house that we were going to have custom built with windows, doors, everything exactly where we wanted it. 4 or 5 weeks into the process, we hadn't heard anything, so we actually asked for a refund and they gave it to us. In the meantime, Billy, the guy that we bought our land from, had been offering to build us a house from the very beginning, and he has a background doing that professionally. After he built my mom and Bob a shop in 2 days, we hired him to build our tiny house or our shed to house. Everything that I had sent him was the plans that we had drawn up for our shed to house that we were going to purchase from a local shed dealer. So it's a tiny house, it's a shed to house, it's a real house. I think it's all of the above, but it definitely has the shed to house style. It's a 12 by 36 and Billy built it from the ground up, or site built it. So I've seen on Facebook posts about how people go and pick out a shed. That's what we did originally. But when they didn't build it for us, we had no alternative or no backup, so we went with Billy, who site built it. So if you're thinking of doing a shed to house build, there's different options that you have. You can go to a local dealer and you can pick out a shed and have it delivered, or you can order one and have it customized just the way that you want it, or you can have one site built. All the walls are up. And if you're thinking of going the shed to house route, one thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is if your city or county has any restrictions. When we were looking for land, we specifically looked for land that had no restrictions. So our city and our county has no say as far as what we build on our property or any animals that we raise, etc. So we didn't have to have, say, a permanent foundation. Our house is built on cap blocks and then it's also anchored into the ground using rebar. And the foundation is just one example of a restriction. Another example might be that your house has to be built to a minimum size. Which brings me to today's video, and that is, why did we choose to do a shed to house? The number one reason is because it's affordable. When we sold our house in Abilene, we paid certain things off and we had a certain budget left. We didn't want to get a mortgage. We didn't want to have any financing attached to our house or our land. And so depending on where you live or what's available, or if you can find a repo, typically you can get a shed pretty cheap or pretty affordable and then turn it into a home. The first shed to house that we purchased was a 12 by 36, and I believe it was around 14 or 15. By the time that we added the insulation, the electrical package, the windows that I wanted, the dormers, extra doors, etc., we were going to pay $19,500. So the $19,500 was kind of a base point. It gave us the structure, it gave us insulation, an electric package, like I said, the extra windows and doors that I wanted, but we still had to think about a foundation, buying the cap blocks, hooking up the electric from the house to the electricity pole, running water lines, septic, etc. But in our opinion, it was definitely affordable, and a lot more affordable than a manufactured home or a site-built cabin, etc. So far, we've been able to pay for our land, our utilities, and the house to its current state without going into any debt. The other reason that we chose a shed to house or tiny house is because it's the two of us. We don't have a lot of requirements for space. And another reason is because we spend most of our time outside. We have the goats, the chickens, the ducks, all the animals. We have the garden. Jason has his wood. So we're outside the majority of the time. And so when we come in the evenings, we don't need that much space. A little bit of space, but not too much. Another motivation for going the shed to house route was that it was going to be accessible. We were looking at land in Oklahoma and in Missouri, and in those states, they do offer sheds that can be converted into shed to houses. We had also previously looked at New Mexico, and New Mexico was pretty strict about what they allow. Even getting a shed delivered there was going to be extremely expensive. But where we were looking for land, we could find sheds that we could then turn into a shed to house. It was also meant to be a relatively quick option. You can customize a shed in about 4 to 5 weeks and have it delivered. And we thought at the time that that was a pretty short time to wait. We had planned to live in our camper for those 4 to 5 weeks, and so it didn't seem too long. However, at this point, we're 5 months in and we're ready to get out of the camper and move into our tiny house. So let's take a tour of our shed to house or our tiny house in its current state of construction. Here is a look at our tiny house. It is a 12 by 36. It is site built. We have a cap block foundation with rebar anchoring it into the ground. And when we had ordered our shed that we were going to turn into this shed to house, I was able to customize it with all of these windows and doors. And I also created videos from day one of the build. The porches were add-ons that we added later. It's also definitely a work in progress. I believe we're at a little more than a month into the build. Just a few days ago, we had the electric ran from the pole into the house. So now the house has the capacity for electricity. And what I mean by that is that we paid for the electrical package so that all of the outlets, all of the wires are roughed in. But we had to go purchase separately all of the breakers and all of the outlets and plugs. And then Jason is wiring everything. So that was kind of a learning experience. I was thinking that paying for the electrical package would mean that it was ready to go, just needed to be hooked up to the pole. But for us, what it meant is that it's only roughed in and we have to finish the rest of the work. Anyways, welcome to our home. This is our living room. And we have been working on installing our tongue and groove boards called Ponderosa Pine that we purchased from a local lumber yard. All of the doors and windows I got to choose and customize exactly where I wanted them, which is important in picking out your shed to house, is knowing how you want your layout to be. Here's the view looking towards the bedroom. And we have new guests. I just found those the other day. It's been very hard to find chicks this year. They've been going very quickly. This will be our kitchen. This is not where the appliances are going permanently. It's just based off of what's been wired so far. The fridge will be on the left, the stove in the middle, then the sink under this window, and then a bar kitchen. And here is our bedroom slash bathroom. The plumbing is on hold due to the rain that we've had, but it will go on this wall, and then we'll work on this wall, building with the tongue and groove once the plumbing is already done. And the look from this side. I had purchased the shiplap white panels from Home Depot, 4x8s. However, the thickness wasn't what was recommended by Billy, and so he installed this ceiling last week. It's not finished, it needs to be trimmed out, and then we're painting it white. Neither one of us is a huge fan of it in its current state, but hopefully once it gets painted and finished, we'll like it. This week we were able to get 2 lights installed. The bedroom fan and light will be exactly the same as the living room. And our kitchen light. And the lights are installed, but Jason is still working on installing all the breakers to run them. So currently that is our light source, but at least we have a light. This is our heat and cooling system. It's called a mini split. That part will be installed outside with this part inside. It's just a work in progress. I've been working on getting our walls sealed, which will protect them from moisture and heat. And I'm using this oil-based polyurethane, and that's supposed to be the most superior product for protecting against moisture and heat. An element that we needed to do research on in living in a tiny house or shed house is a water heater system. I was going to go tankless, but this was recommended to us. It's a 19-gallon tank water heater, and it's small enough that it will be able to fit in a cabinet. At this point, we've also chosen to go with a traditional toilet route and repair our septic system. We had thought about going with a compost toilet or an electric toilet, but in the end, to get it move-in ready, we've just decided to go with repairing our current septic that we have here on site. So I hope this gave some insight into why we chose a shed to house, or just some things to think about if you're thinking of going that route. They can be affordable, they can be accessible, they can be built quickly, and you can customize them. I thank you all very, very much for watching and for supporting us, and I hope you have an awesome and amazing week.